On the morning of my 30th birthday, my wife didn't just forget the date. She erased it. While I was sitting at home wondering why my marriage felt so cold, she was checking into a luxury hotel downtown with another man. Most guys would have kicked down the door or caused a scene in the lobby. I didn't. Instead, I paid the front desk to deliver a slice of chocolate cake to room 304 with a note that ended our marriage in exactly 7 words. Her reaction? Let's just say, panic doesn't even begin to cover it. Welcome back to Inspiration Seeker. If you love stories about cheaters getting caught and serving up some cold, hard justice, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment below. Tell me, what is the absolute worst excuse you've ever heard from partner? I read every single one. Now, let's get into the story. I woke up with that specific kind of anticipation you only get on big milestones. It was the big 3-0. 30 years old. In my head, I had this cinematic idea of how the morning would go. I imagined the smell of bacon wafting from the kitchen, maybe a card on the nightstand, or just my wife, Sarah, rolling over to give me a hug and whisper, "Happy birthday." But the reality was quiet, brutally quiet. When I walked into the kitchen, there was no breakfast. There was just Sarah, frantically packing her work bag, looking like she was already late for a meeting that hadn't started yet. She was a blur of motion, her heels clicking aggressively against the hardwood floors. I stood there for a moment, leaning against the counter, just waiting for her to acknowledge me. When she finally looked up, her eyes didn't hold any warmth. They just looked stressed. "Morning," I said, try and keep my voice light. "You know what today is, right?" She sighed, the kind of heavy, impatient sigh that makes you feel like a burden. "Ethan, please. I am slammed today. If this is about the trash, I'll take it out later." I blinked, genuinely confused. "It's November 14th, Sarah. My birthday." She didn't freeze. She didn't gasp. She didn't even apologize. She just rolled her eyes and grabbed her car keys. "Oh my God, Ethan, don't be so dramatic. We literally celebrated with your parents last weekend. Remember the steakhouse? That was the celebration. We agreed we aren't doing gifts this year because we're saving for the renovation. Don't be so needy." That word stung. Needy. I wasn't asking for a parade. I just wanted my wife to care that I had survived another year. Before I could argue, she dropped the second bomb. "Also, don't wait up for me tonight," she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Jessica is going through a massive crisis with her boyfriend. She needs a girls' night to vent. So we're going to grab drinks downtown to help her decompress. I'll probably just crash at her place if it gets late. On my birthday?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You're going out with Jessica on my actual birthday night. We celebrated last week," she snapped, opening the front door. "Stop making me feel guilty for being a good friend. I'll see you tomorrow. Happy birthday, okay?" The door slammed shut before I could respond. I stood in the empty kitchen, the silence rushing back in. It wasn't just that she forgot. It was that she didn't care even after I reminded her. I looked at the calendar on the fridge. November 14th. I was 30 years old. I was a successful architect. I had a beautiful home, and I had never felt more pathetic in my entire life. I woke up with that specific kind of anticipation you only get on big milestones. It was the big 3-0. 30 years old. In my head, I had this cinematic idea of how the morning would go. I imagined the smell of bacon wafting from the kitchen, maybe a card on the nightstand, or just my wife, Sarah, rolling over to give me a hug and whisper, "Happy birthday." But the reality was quiet, brutally quiet. When I walked into the kitchen, there was no breakfast. There was just Sarah, frantically packing her work bag, looking like she was already late for a meeting that hadn't started yet. She was a blur of motion, her heels clicking aggressively against the hardwood floors. I stood there for a moment, leaning against the counter, just waiting for her to acknowledge me. When she finally looked up, her eyes didn't hold any warmth. They just looked stressed. "Morning," I said, try and keep my voice light. "You know what today is, right?" She sighed, the kind of heavy, impatient sigh that makes you feel like a burden. "Ethan, please. I am slammed today. If this is about the trash, I'll take it out later. I blinked, genuinely confused. It's November 14th, Sarah. My birthday. She didn't freeze. She didn't gasp. She didn't even apologize. She just rolled her eyes and grabbed her car keys. Oh my God, Ethan, don't be so dramatic. We literally celebrated with your parents last weekend. Remember the steakhouse? That was the celebration. We agreed we aren't doing gifts this year because we're saving for the renovation. Don't be so needy. That word stung. Needy. I wasn't asking for a parade. I just wanted my wife to care that I had survived another year. Before I could argue, she dropped the second bomb. Also, don't wait up for me tonight, she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. Jessica is going through a massive crisis with her boyfriend. She needs a girls' night to vent. So we're going to grab drinks downtown to help her decompress. I'll probably just crash at her place if it gets late. On my birthday, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You're going out with Jessica on my actual birthday night. We celebrated last week. She snapped, opened the front door. Stop making me feel guilty for being a good friend. I'll see you tomorrow. Happy birthday, okay? The door slammed shut before I could respond. I stood in the empty kitchen, the silence rushing back in. It wasn't just that she forgot. It was that she didn't care even after I reminded her. I looked at the calendar on the fridge. November 14th. I was 30 years old. I was a successful architect. I had a beautiful home, and I had never felt more pathetic in my entire life. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I grabbed my keys, didn't even bother with a jacket, and ran out to the car. The drive from our house to downtown Seattle usually takes 20 minutes, but I made it in 10. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. On the way there, my brain started doing this desperate mental gymnastics. You know how it is. You try to protect yourself from the truth. I started thinking, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe the GPS is glitching. Or maybe this is a surprise. I actually convinced myself for a few blocks that Sarah had rented a hotel suite to surprise me. Maybe Jessica wasn't on it, posting that Portland story just to throw me off the scent. I wanted to believe that lie so badly. I wanted to walk into that lobby and have everyone jump out and yell, "Surprise!" But the moment I pulled up to the Fairmont Olympic, that hope evaporated. I parked illegally near the entrance, not care about the ticket, and walked through the spinning glass doors. The lobby was grand. High ceilings, marble floors, the smell of expensive perfume and old money. I scanned the room, trying to blend in with the tourists and business travelers. And then I saw her. She was standing near the elevators, wearing a dress I hadn't seen in years, a sleek, backless red number that she used to wear on our anniversaries. But she wasn't looking for me. She was looking up at a man, laughing at something he whispered in her ear. It wasn't a stranger. It was Brad, her personal trainer. The guy she swore was just really good at motivating her, and totally harmless. I stepped behind a large pillar, my breath catching in my throat. I watched as he placed his hand on the small of her back, way too intimate for a trainer. She leaned into him, and for a split second, I saw them kiss. It wasn't a friendly peck. It was the kind of kiss you give someone when you're in love, or when you think you aren't going to get caught. I watched them step into the elevator, the doors sliding shut to seal them away. I didn't scream. I didn't run over there. A strange, icy calm took over. I needed to know exactly where they were going. I walked up to the front desk. There was a young concierge typing on a computer. I pulled a $100 bill from my wallet, folded it neatly, and slid it across the marble counter. "Excuse me," I said, flashing a tired, apologetic smile. My wife just went up, but I completely forgot to give her her inhaler. She's with the tall guy. I don't want to call and interrupt them if they're settling in. What room is Sarah under? The clerk looked at the money, then at me. He hesitated for a second, but the crisp Benjamin Franklin did the talking. He tapped a few keys. "MS, Sarah, she's in room 304, he whispered. "Thank you," I said. Room 304. I walked away, the number burning into my mind. Room 304. the room where my marriage was about to die. I stood there for a moment, staring at the golden numbers above the elevator doors as they climbed. 1, 2, 3, ding. The doors opened on the third floor, and I knew they were walking down the hallway to room 304 right now. In that moment, I expected to lose control. I expected to feel that blind, white-hot rage that you see in movies where the guy storms upstairs, kicks down the door, and starts throwing punches. But weirdly, that didn't happen. Instead, a cold, absolute calm washed over me. It was like a switch had been flipped in my brain. The anxiety about my marriage, the desperation for her attention, the hurt, it all just evaporated. It was replaced by clarity. I realized I didn't want to fight for her. I didn't want to scream at Brad. I didn't want to get arrested for assault on my 30th birthday. The marriage was over. It had ended the second she stepped into that elevator. Now, I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted a victory. I turned on my heel and walked away from the elevators toward the hotel's retail corridor. Tucked away in the corner of the lobby was a high-end European patisserie, the kind of place that sells macarons for $5 a pop and cakes that look like art pieces. I walked in, the bell above the door chiming softly. The smell of melted chocolate and expensive butter filled the air, a stark contrast to the toxicity I had just witnessed. I walked straight to the glass display case. "Can I help you, sir?" the young woman behind the counter asked, smiling. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I need the most expensive cake you have available right now. The chocolate truffle ganache. The whole thing." Her eyes lit up. She probably thought she was witnessing a grand romantic gesture. She carefully boxed up the dark, rich cake in sophisticated black packaging with silk ribbon. "Is there a message you'd like on the card?" she asked, sliding a small, heavy piece of cardstock and a pen across the glass counter. "I'll write it myself," I replied. My hand didn't shake. I uncapped the pen and pressed the ink to the paper. I wrote the words that would define the rest of my life, keeping it short, brutal, and precise. "Happy 30th birthday to me. I saw you in the lobby. Don't bother coming home. Enjoy the divorce." I sealed the envelope and placed it on top of the box. It was the most expensive birthday cake I had ever purchased, costing me nearly $80. And the irony was, I wasn't going to eat a single bite of it. This cake wasn't for eating. It was ammunition. I walked back to the concierge desk, the cake box heavy in my hands. It felt less like a dessert and more like a loaded weapon. The same clerk was there, but this time I approached him with a different energy. I wasn't the worried husband looking for his wife anymore. I was the guy calling the shots. I pulled out another $100 bill. My bank account doesn't take a hit tonight, but honestly, it was worth every penny, and placed it on top of the cake box. "I need one more favor," I said, keeping my voice low and smooth. "I need this delivered to room 304 immediately. Don't say who it's from. Just knock, hand it to them, and tell them it's complimentary VIP service from the hotel management." The clerk looked at the cash, then at the fancy bakery box. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and rang a bell. A bellhop in a uniform appeared, took the box and the instructions, and headed toward the elevators. "Thank you," I said. "You've been very helpful." I walked out of the hotel, the cool night air hitting my face. I didn't drive away. I crossed the street to where I had parked my car, reclined the seat, and turned off the headlights. From this spot, I had a perfect view of the third floor. I knew exactly which window belonged to room 304, because it was the only one with the lights dimmed low, casting a soft, romantic glow against the curtains. I sat there in the dark, drumming my fingers on the steering wheel. It was a waiting game now. I checked my watch, 9:15 p.m. I watched the lobby entrance. I saw the bellhop step into the elevator car. I imagined the chime as the doors opened on the third floor. I imagined him walking down the carpeted hallway, balancing the box that contained the end of my marriage. It was strange. I should have been crying. I should have been devastated. But instead, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. They were up there right now, probably popping champagne, laughing about how they got away with it, completely oblivious that a bomb was about to go off in their faces. 9:18 p.m. The light in room 304 flickered. Someone was moving toward the door. The delivery was happening. I took a deep breath and stared at my phone, waiting for the inevitable explosion. It didn't take long. For minutes, to be exact. That's how long it took for the reality of my note to sink in. At 9:22 p.m., the silence of my car was shattered by the violent buzzing of my phone. The screen lit up, illuminating the dark interior. Incoming call. Wife. The photo that popped up was one from our wedding day, smiling and happy. The irony was almost suffocating. I stared at the phone, watching it vibrate against the passenger seat. I didn't slide to answer. I didn't decline it. I just let it ring until it went to voicemail. 2 seconds later, it rang again, and again. Then came the text. It started as a trickle and turned into a flood. Ding. Ethan, wait. Ding. Please pick up the phone. Ding. It's not what you think. Let me explain. Ding. Where are you? I let out a short, dry laugh. It's not what I think. It was exactly what I thought. I looked up at the window of room 304. The soft, romantic mood lighting was gone. The harsh overhead lights had been flipped on. Through the sheer curtains, I could see a silhouette pacing back and forth frantically. It was Sarah. She was panicking. The fun was over. The consequences had just walked in the door. But the best part was yet to come. About 3 minutes later, the side exit of the hotel burst open. I slouched lower in my seat, keeping my eyes peeled. It wasn't Sarah. It was Brad, the so-called tough guy, personal trainer. Looked like he had seen a ghost. He was tucking his shirt in as he ran, looking over his shoulder every 2 seconds like he expected a sniper to take him out. He wasn't staying to comfort her. He wasn't staying to fight for their love. He was running for his life. He practically sprinted to his truck, fumbled with his keys, and peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching. He left her there alone with the bill and the wreckage of her marriage. That's the thing about affair partners. When the lights turn on and the bill comes due, they're always the first ones to run toward the exit. I watched his taillights fade into the distance. My phone buzzed again. Another call from Sarah. I picked it up this time, looked at the screen, and whispered to the empty car. Checkmate. I put the car in gear. I wasn't going to wait for her to come down. I had work to do at home. I beat her home by about 15 minutes. That was all the time I needed. I didn't waste a second. As soon as I walked through the door of the house we had bought together just 2 years ago, it didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. I ran upstairs and grabbed a large duffel bag. I didn't bother neatly folding shirts or matching socks. I just swept my arm across the dresser, dumping everything into the bag. But I was smart about it. I wasn't just grabbing clothes. I was grabbing leverage. I went to the safe in the master closet and took my passport, my birth certificate, the deed to the house, and the hard drive with all my architectural portfolios. I wasn't going to let her hold my life hostage. Then I went downstairs for the most important thing, Buster, my golden retriever. He was sleeping by the back door, completely unaware that his family was imploding. I clipped his leash on. Come on, buddy. We're going on a trip. I was just zipping up the bag when the living room was suddenly flooded with blinding white light. Headlights. I heard the screech of tires on the asphalt, followed by the slam of a car door. She had driven like a maniac to catch me. I walked out the front door, bag over my shoulder, dog at my side, just as she was sprinting up the walkway. She looked like a wreck. That elegant red dress she had worn for her gym trainer was rumpled. Her mascara was running down her cheeks in black streaks. She was breathless, panic radiating off her in waves. "Ethan!" she screamed, lunging for my arm. I sidestepped her, and she nearly stumbled. "Ethan, stop. You have to listen to me. It was a mistake. He means nothing to me. I panicked about turning 30 soon, and I did something stupid." I stopped and looked at her, really looked at her. It was amazing how quickly love can turn into disgust. "You aren't the one turning 30, Sarah." "I am," I said, my voice dead calm. "And you didn't panic. You planned it. You lied about Jessica. You drove to a hotel. You checked in. That's not a mistake. That's a series of choices." She was sobbing now, hysterically grasping at my shirt. Please, baby, don't leave. We can fix this. I forgot your birthday because I was so stressed, and one thing led to another. I cut her off. You didn't forget my birthday. You just chose to celebrate it with him instead. I unlocked my car and loaded Buster into the passenger seat. I turned back to her one last time as she stood shivering in the driveway. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. My lawyer will call you in the morning. Oh, and Sarah, do me a favor. Don't eat the cake. It was expensive. I got in, locked the doors, and backed out of the driveway, leaving her standing there alone in the dark. You'd think after getting caught red-handed in a hotel lobby, most people would lay low. They would feel shame. But I learned something important the next morning. Cheaters don't feel shame. They feel the need for damage control. I woke up in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, a far cry from the luxury of the Fairmont, but at least my conscience was clean. I made some coffee and checked my phone. My notifications were blowing up. I opened Facebook and saw that Sarah had already been busy. She had posted a long, vague status update at 6 a.m. It read, "Totally devastated. I never thought the person I promised to spend my life with would abandon me without even a conversation. Please pray for my heart." It was a masterclass in manipulation. She left out the boyfriend, the hotel, and the lies. She painted me as the villain who walked out on a struggling wife. Friends were commenting, "Stay strong, babe," and "He doesn't deserve you." I felt the anger bubbling up again, but I pushed it down. I wasn't going to get into a comment war. I was going to drop a nuke. I typed out a simple status update of my own. No long paragraphs. No emotional ranting. Just one sentence. Celebrating 30 years of life and 0 days of being cheated on in room 304 of the Fairmont Hotel. I hit post. Within 10 minutes, her post was deleted. My phone stopped buzzing with angry messages from her friends and started buzzing with apologies. The narrative didn't just shift. It flipped upside down. By 10 a.m., I was sitting in the office of the most ruthless divorce attorney in Seattle. I laid everything out on the mahogany table. The GPS logs, the text receipts, and most importantly, the photos I had snapped of them kissing near the elevators. My lawyer, a woman named Diane who looked like she ate husbands for breakfast, looked at the photos and smiled. "Ethan," she said, "in Washington State, infidelity doesn't always sway the court, but we have a prenuptial agreement with an infidelity clause. These photos, this is a smoking gun. She doesn't just lose the marriage. She loses any claim to your assets." The final blow came that afternoon. Sarah's mother called me, screaming into the receiver. "How dare you humiliate my daughter publicly? You are an immature child." I didn't yell back. I simply texted her the photo of Sarah and Brad entering the elevator. The screaming on the other end stopped instantly. There was a long, awkward silence, and then the line went dead. I looked at Buster, who was chewing on a motel pillow. "Looks like we're winning, buddy." Fast forward 2 months. They say divorce is a marathon, not a sprint, but thanks to the evidence I collected that night, we were moving at record speed. But the real satisfaction wasn't in the courtroom paperwork. It was watching the Karma police arrive, and let me tell you, they didn't come quietly. Sarah's life unraveled faster than a cheap sweater. She had been banking on Brad, her soulmate from the gym, to catch her when she fell. She thought they would ride off into the sunset together, now that the evil husband was out of the picture. But remember how Brad peeled out of that parking lot? He didn't stop running. It turns out Brad had a little secret of his own. He was married with 2 kids in the suburbs. Room 304 wasn't the start of their new life. It was just a Tuesday night hookup for him. When Sarah called him the next day, desperate and homeless, he didn't offer her a place to stay. He blocked her number. He ghosted her so hard he might as well have been dead. He went straight back to his wife and played the role of the faithful husband, leaving Sarah completely alone to face the music. And the music was loud. During the financial audit, my lawyer found the transaction for the Fairmont Hotel. It was charged to our joint savings account. She had used my money to cheat on me. That little detail didn't sit well with the judge. Because of the infidelity clause in our prenup and her misappropriation of marital funds, the settlement was brutal. I kept the house. I kept my retirement. I kept the dog. Sarah? She walked away with her personal car, which still had payments on it, and a mountain of credit card debt she had racked up trying to maintain a lifestyle she could no longer afford. Last I heard, she moved into a cramped studio apartment on the wrong side of town, the kind with thin walls and sirens wailing all night. Her parents were helping her with rent, but the relationship was strained. She had humiliated the family, and in our small social circle, word travels fast. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a cautionary tale. It is exactly 1 year later, November 14th again. But this time, everything is different. I'm not sitting on a leather couch eating cold pizza alone. I'm not staring at a GPS on an iPad. I'm standing on a rooftop bar overlooking the skyline of Chicago. I took a transfer at work shortly after the divorce was finalized. I needed a new city, new architecture, and a skyline that didn't remind me of betrayal. The wind up here is crisp, but I don't feel the cold. I'm surrounded by a small group of friends. People I met in the last year who actually know the real me, not just a role I played in a marriage. And then there's Chloe. She's standing next to me, holding my hand. She didn't forget today. In fact, she's been planning this night for weeks. She's not looking over my shoulder for someone better. She's looking at me like I'm the only person in the room. When I told her the story of my 30th birthday a few months ago, she didn't laugh or roll her eyes. She cried. She held me and said, "You deserved better." And she was right. A waiter approaches our table with a dessert. It's a slice of chocolate cake. For a split second, my heart jumps. It looks almost exactly like the one I bought in the lobby of the Fairmont. But this time, there's no bitter note attached. There's no hidden agenda. I look at the cake, and then I look back at the last year. Room 304 was the most painful night of my life. It destroyed the future I thought I wanted. But as I stand here tonight, happier than I've ever been, I realize that $80 cake was the best investment I ever made. It bought me my freedom. It bought me my dignity. And it led me right here. I pick up my fork, take a bite of the cake, and smile. It tastes like victory. I raise my glass to the city lights. Happy birthday to me. Looking back, I realized something important about that night. The hardest part wasn't seeing them together. The hardest part was a moment right before I walked into the bakery. That split second where I had to choose between fighting for someone who didn't respect me or walking away with my self-respect intact. I chose myself. A lot of people ask me if I regret not confronting them face to face, screaming, or making a scene. My answer is always the same. No. Silence is powerful. Moving on is powerful. Success is the ultimate revenge. If you are watching this and you feel like something is off in your relationship, if you feel forgotten, dismissed, or if you see a digital breadcrumb that doesn't make sense, trust your gut. It's rarely wrong. And if you find yourself standing outside your own version of room 304, remember this. You don't have to kick down the door. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave a note, walk away, and never look back.